The Fifth Quarter Show is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, championship partner of Baylor Athletics. Visit Texas Farm Bureau Insurance online to find a local agent today. Baylor Scott and White Health, the official hospital and healthcare system of Baylor Athletics. Your healthcare, your way. HEB, the official grocer of Baylor Athletics. Proudly serving Texans since 1905. TFNB, your bank for life. The official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Premier ER and Urgent Care. Feel better now. Nissan, innovation that excites. Now, here's your host, Derek Smith.
Well, in the end, this was not Jerry Kill Part 2. There was concern all week long from Baylor fans when they saw that Oklahoma State had let go of their longtime head coach, Mike Gundy, during the week. But in the end, the story was not the same as a game that we'll just try to put out of our memory in 2021. That was the concern all week, and there were times today that it looked like there might be a chance for that to happen, but it did not. Baylor gets a road win. They're now 1-1 in Big 12 play, 3-2 overall with a 45-27 victory over Oklahoma State, and really a pretty dominant second half from the Bears after Oklahoma State threw not just the kitchen sink, but the piping, the plumbing, digging down into the sewer, everything they could in the playbook they threw at Baylor today, and at times they made it close. But the Bears win 45-27 today over Oklahoma State. Good evening, everyone. Pleased to have you with us here on the Fifth Quarter Show. I am Derek Smith. If you'd like to join in the conversation, there are two ways that you can do that. One, you can tweet us your thoughts at hashtag BUQ5Show on Twitter. That is hashtag BUQ5Show. Or you can comment on our YouTube stream, which is up right now. Derek Smith here with you following a 45-27 Baylor victory today. And this was a game that felt different in the fourth quarter than it did early on. Now, you look at this, there were some things you don't like that Baylor did today, but there were plenty you like as well. There's a saying, you never apologize for a road win, particularly not in conference play. And in the end, Baylor's not going to apologize. They're going to feel good that they got the job done today. They accomplished their mission going into Stillwater and winning. Like a lot of you, probably like them when they break down the film, weren't really thrilled with the first half numbers that Oklahoma State was able to put up there. But in the second half, it got a lot better. Baylor holding them to just 7 points in the second half, under 100 yards of offense. They settled in, and Baylor's offense, really aside from a poor stretch to start the second half, really rolled today over 600 yards of offense, 612 to be exact, 219 yards on the ground. Baylor averaging 5.5 yards per carry on the ground today. Their running game, which has at times struggled this year, was a big factor in today's victory for the Bears. They did those things well, and I think we're going to revisit Coach Aranda's post-game interview with John Morris and Nick Florence a little bit later on the program. He said something that I don't think is hyperbole. In a lot of ways, this was Oklahoma State's Super Bowl. They had an awful week. Their coach that has been there for 2 decades is fired on a Tuesday. They're coming off of a loss to an in-state rival that they expect to beat, that hadn't won in Stillwater for 70-plus years. And they gave the Bears everything they could in the first half, but the Bears pull away for a 45-27 victory. And I think you look at this game, Baylor through 5 games now is 3-2. They have yet to play a complete game. That's something Coach Aranda's talked about. Can you play complementary football? I think Baylor did play complementary football in the second half, but Baylor has yet to put together a 60-minute game. Despite that, you can look at this a couple of ways. Baylor's 2-0 on the road this year, including a ranked win against SMU and a win in a place that even when the other team is way, way down like Oklahoma State is this year, still not an easy place to win. You hoped it would be an easy place to win given Oklahoma State's struggles this year, but it was not. But despite not playing a complete game, Baylor is 2-0 on the year. I think through 5 games we've seen that Baylor is good enough to play with anybody on the schedule, but still also have to prove that we can put together that 60-minute effort that will keep teams below us from hanging around for a while. Next week, Kansas State's going to be another chance to do that. But today, we'll just focus on the win, 45-27, a Baylor victory. I do think this Baylor team has shown some resilience in two ways. One is when they fall behind, they never seem to be out of it. The offense plays a role in that, but we saw them fall behind against Auburn, work their way back in the game, fall behind against SMU, win the game, fall behind against Arizona State last week, lost at the gun. And again, as you describe that, it's good and bad. It's up and down, and the team's been a little bit up and down. Obviously, the 3-2 record would indicate that. Even in games at times, they've been a little bit up and down. And it's going to be we're going to look over the next few games and learn a little more each game. I would love it right now if after that tough stretch to start the season against Auburn and SMU, Baylor was 4-1 or 5-0, and we felt like they were really rolling. That's not the case. The team's 3-2, but it's a winning record, 1-1 in Big 12 play, and the team's going to have opportunities to continue to kind of write their own story going forward. Now, to get where they really want to be, to have that chance to play in Arlington, they're going to have to play better than they did in the first half. Today was a weird game in that regard. Oklahoma State threw everything at them, as we said. Gadget plays, trick plays, running back passes, wide receiver passes, bringing out players who weren't on film. And I think to some extent there is, I don't want to use the word excuse, but that does have an impact. I think you have to look and say Baylor didn't play as good as they wanted to and really is going to need to play better next week against Kansas State than they did in the first half of today's game. They're going to need to play better in their road games the rest of the way. But they've also shown an ability to find ways to reel it back in. The hope is that they play well enough at the start of games that maybe you don't need to play quite as well in the end to make it a ball game, or maybe an easy win somewhere along the way. That may not be in the big, look at the Big 12 this year. That might not be in most teams' MO this year. Obviously, Utah had a big win today over West Virginia. You had Texas Tech with a big win last week over Utah, but a lot of close games throughout the conference. The Bears have shown an ability to win them. They've shown an ability to lose them, and I think the way they start games from here on out is going to play a big role in whether or not there's they put together the kind of record. Could a 5-2 record the rest of the way get Baylor into Arlington? I think it's possible that it could, and I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves here in talking about that, but I think through 5 games, it's just we're still learning who this team is. We wish we had a better sense of them being really, really good with that great offense they have, but I think they're a team that can be good. They've just got to prove that. They've got to put it together over 60 minutes. So you really don't like the fact that this was a 28-20 game at halftime. You don't like the fact that Oklahoma State had nearly 350 yards of offense in the first half, which was their biggest first half total in 4 years. But then you like the fact that coming out of the locker room, Baylor immediately hits them with a deep ball to Mr. Touchdown, Kobe Prentice. His 5th touchdown of the year, 2nd in the Big 12 in receiving touchdowns, despite having just 16 receptions on the season. And you really like the fact that the only scoring Baylor allowed from Oklahoma State came after Oklahoma State had a short field in the second half. So first half, Oklahoma State got a lot done. Second half, they did not, and the Bears win this one 45-27. Ahead on the 5th quarter show this evening, we are going to look at the stats and go inside the numbers on this one. We're going to hear from Bears head coach Dave Aranda a little bit later on, talk about areas and players who had the biggest impact on this game. But when we return after our first time out, we are going to have our Green and Gold Rewind segment. We're going to hear the calls from J-Mo and Nick and relive the game that was a 45-27 Baylor win today over Oklahoma State. Back with more after this on the 5th quarter show on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
The Toyota Trucks Game Day sales event is on, and there's no one key to victory. You need strength. You need power. You need agility. You need a team that shows up ready to win. And Toyota Trucks, yeah, they bring the full roster. The Toyota Tundra and Tacoma are built for it all. With available bed-mounted power outlets, massive towing capability, and a cabin fit for your crew, Toyota Tundra and Tacoma don't just show up to game day, they dominate it. Kick off the season with big savings during the Toyota Trucks Game Day sales event. But hurry, these deals won't last forever.
Toyota is a proud partner of Baylor Athletics. Wear green, haul gold in a new Tundra or Tacoma. built to take you wherever the road leads, on game day and beyond. Visit your local Toyota dealer today.
Toyota, let's go places. See packages and options at toyota.com for feature availability.
A bank in any town USA treats everyone like, well, anyone. At Central National Bank, we provide Central Texans with a different kind of banking. We believe in people over processes, listening over telling, and helping our customers over helping ourselves. Come to Central National Bank and experience the difference. Bank different, Bank Central. Central National Bank, member FDIC, proud partner of Baylor Athletics.
Kids can now join the Baylor Cub Club, the official kids club of Baylor Athletics, presented by Green Eye Associates. Fans 12 and under can register for the low cost of $25 and gain exclusive benefits and access to Baylor Athletics events. Members receive free admission to select events, exclusive giveaway access, and their own membership package. To register your Cub, please visit BaylorBears.com/Cub Club. Sign your Cub up today.
Welcome back to the Fifth Quarter Show on the Baylor Sports Media Network. It's time to hit the rewind button and relive today's game with highlights from the legendary voice of the Bears, John Morris. This is Green and Gold Rewind.
Back here with you on the Fifth Quarter Show. The Bears 45-27 winners today in Stillwater. It's back-to-back wins for the Bears in a series in which, aside from a couple of stretches, a 9-game win streak for Oklahoma State once the Big 12 got started from the 90s to the early 2000s. The Bears had a stretch where they won 4 in a row, but really since then it's been mostly back and forth. The Bears made it their second straight victory over the Cowboys today, 45-27, the final score. Let's take a look at how this game unfolded. Again, coming into the game today, there was a lot of worry. Would this Baylor team find themselves walking into a bit of a hornet's nest, a team playing for pride, playing for some, really their egos. Their program's been bruised this week, and at times it looked like Baylor had indeed walked into the proverbial hornet's nest there in Stillwater after the firing of Mike Gundy, who had been their head coach since 2005. In fact, he'd have been a part of their program for most of his adult life. He's fired midweek, and Doug Meacham, who'd had some success against the Bears as the offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator at TCU. He had success against the Bears over the years, and you also wonder what changes are going to be in store. Well, it turns out there were a lot of changes in store as Oklahoma State threw basically everything they could at the Bears. Let's take a look at how it played out right now. Oklahoma State got the ball first, and after a penalty on the kickoff, they ripped off a 32-yard run despite being backed up inside their own 20-yard line, but Baylor was able to force a punt. They held and got the ball back for the first time. Fast starts have been a problem for the Bears throughout this season. They were down 17-3 to Auburn, down 10-0 to SMU, down 10-0 to Arizona State. So could Baylor get off to a quick start? Well, for a moment, they absolutely did. Baylor found Cole Wilson early and often, needed just 3 plays to hit the score, to hit pay dirt.
Robertson looking to throw.
Touchdown.
Pass right side.
Touchdown.
Cole Wilson. He'll take it in. Cole Wilson, 34 yards for the Baylor touchdown. How about a 3-play scoring drive by the Bears to punch it in on their first possession today?
Well, you wanted a quick start. That was a quick start. Just 3 plays to hit pay dirt, 78 yards, 61 of them by Cole Wilson on 2 catches, including that touchdown. It gave the Bears a 7-0 lead. But Oklahoma State would answer. On their first 2 drives, they ran at least 4 gadget plays, and it looked like there were some throughout the game where they pitched it out to a running back who maybe had the option to throw but did not, including 2 passes by a former quarterback turned wide receiver named Sam Jackson. Sam Jackson that got on a double pass found Josh Ford in the end zone to cap off a 12-play, 75-yard drive that made it 7-7. It took 5.5 minutes off the clock, so a wide receiver throws a touchdown pass to a tight end, and that tied the game up. On the television broadcast, they noted that Josh Ford, his dad went to Baylor, and of course I find myself, if I hear Josh Ford, I go back to 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005 in there, and I think of the great slugging catcher for the Bears. Baylor baseball, Josh Ford, who part of those teams that went to Omaha, great player, but that led up to Omaha, really good player for the Bears. But turns out it is a different father, not Josh Ford, but Ray Ford, who played football at Baylor. And it was his son, Josh, who caught the touchdown pass to make it 7-0. That's the way it would stay until the end of the first quarter. Moving into the second quarter, though, the Bears had the ball. Multiple Oklahoma State penalties gave Baylor the ball inside the red zone, and it took them only one play into the second quarter to reclaim the lead.
Here's the play, 2nd and 14. Give to Bryson Washington. Touchdown. Bounces off a man at the 10-yard line and pinballs into the end zone. What a run from the 19-yard line. First play of the second quarter, Bryson Washington punches it in.
One thing the Bears did today very well that they did there, when they reached the red zone, they didn't settle for field goals. Baylor, 5 trips to the red zone, 5 touchdowns. And throughout this season, one thing the Bears have done well is absorb contact when they have a chance to score a touchdown and keep on driving. I think back to that SMU game. We saw Josh Cameron do it a couple times. We've seen Bryson Washington do it, and he did so there, bouncing off a couple of tackles, running in from 19 yards to give the Bears a 14-7 lead. That just one play rather into the second quarter. An Oklahoma State field goal on the subsequent drive would make it 14-10, but the Bears would answer again with a touchdown. Baylor was looking, we talked to Seth Russell on the Baylor Alumni Tailgate Show before the game. He talked about they really were looking to get some other guys involved in the running game, and we saw that today. Caden Knighton, Michael Turner, Joseph Dodds, and of course Sawyer Robertson. Fans have been wanting that. But you don't want Bryson Washington to take all the hits, despite the fact that he is leading the Big 12 in rushing yards per game. You want some other guys to get involved. Caden Knighton had a career-high 49-yard run on third down to extend Baylor's second drive of the second quarter. And then, deep inside the red zone, Baylor found a play that worked for them a couple of times, a jump pass to a tight end.
Bears have it 1st and goal at the 6 of Oklahoma State. Sawyer Robertson in an empty backfield.
This is a weird call.
But there's a flag down. Klopfenstein has the catch. Let's check the flag.
I don't know what the flag would be.
I'm not sure.
Substitution. 12 players on defense. Penalties declined.
Touchdown, Baylor.
Hey, we can celebrate. How about that? Had to wait for the penalty to be called, but Matthew Klopfenstein officially secured his second career touchdown. That capped off a 6-play, 78-yard drive that drained 2 minutes and 17 seconds off the clock and gave the Bears their first 2-score lead at 21-10. 9:08 to play in the second quarter. Oklahoma State, though, looking to answer, and they did. They had a long pass, 2 long runs, the last by Trent Howland. They went 75 yards in just 3 plays in under a minute, and with 8:12 to go in the first half, they were back to within 4 at 21-17. The teams traded punts, but the Bears got right back to it. He drove it inside the red zone, working with a short field after they had held Oklahoma State to a punt, and basically the same play as we saw in the last touchdown, but this time it was Michael Trigg, the recipient.
So 1st and goal from the 10 for the Bears. Robertson takes the snap.
Touchdown.
Gonna toss it over the middle. It's caught by Michael Trigg. Wide open Trigg, center of the field. Trigg with the touchdown catch, his 4th of the season.
And the Bears are back up by 2 scores with 3:40 to play after that 6-play, 56-yard drive. Michael Trigg with the touchdown for the Bears as he came through with another one. You know, as Baylor misses him when he's not in there, he's a weapon, and he had another huge catch in the game today that really allowed Baylor to salt the game away. But Michael Trigg, who is a mismatch in the red zone and really all over the field for the Bears, nice to have him back. He scored 2 touchdowns last week against Arizona State, and he scored another touchdown today. That one made it 28-17. Oklahoma State would get a field goal. The Bears would miss one heading into the locker room. And at halftime, the score was 28-20 in favor of the Bears. Baylor scored 21 points there in that second quarter. And at halftime, there was certainly plenty of consternation throughout the Baylor family. You know, you look, Oklahoma State had ripped off 349 yards, 20 points. This was a team that had not played well. Obviously, just 3 points against Oregon a couple of weeks ago. They lost 19-12 to Tulsa, and they had a strong first half. Baylor's defense did not look at its best. It was concerning, and maybe in the midst of all that, there were some of the signs of it was, you know, if you score 20 points, you've earned them. But a lot of gadget plays, a lot of things that maybe if Baylor could just show a little more discipline, could settle in and prep for, they would do a better job of slowing that down, and Baylor would do that in the second half. So they come out of the locker room and strike quickly, very quickly. This is something Baylor did in the first half. They did so in the second half as well. They needed just 45 seconds to go 86 yards, and that's because Baylor threw a true deep ball to Kobe Prentice, who did what he has done all season long.
So first down for the Bears on the catch by Klopfenstein. Here's Robertson, firing, left side, he's got it, it's stride, touchdown Bears.
What a throw. Oh, man.
Kobe Prentice, Mr. TD for the Bears, another touchdown catch, and what a throw by Sawyer Robertson, 73 yards for the quick strike.
Here's a little number for you. Jordan Tyson, Oklahoma State's All-American wide receiver, leads the Big 12 with 7 touchdowns on 39 receptions this year. Kobe Prentice now second in the Big 12 with 5 on just 16 receptions. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love for him to have even more receptions, but that is a pretty good efficiency rating. 5 touchdowns on just 16 receptions on the year. That put the Bears up 35-20. Just a few seconds into that, just 45 seconds in to the second half. Now, this is where Baylor got bogged down a little bit. Baylor had a couple of punts. They had a turnover, but the defense was able to hold. One thing Baylor did was they held Oklahoma State to 3 straight 3-and-outs to start the second half. Really good job there. But they just couldn't take advantage. They couldn't extend that lead. Baylor had opportunities to really go for, really try to put them away there in the third quarter, an opportunity to go up 3 scores. They couldn't take advantage of it. And then things got real dicey. After Bryson Washington was stuffed on 4th and short at midfield, Oklahoma State went 55 yards in 5 plays. They had 2 double passes on the drive. Trent Howland scored a touchdown to make it a 1-score game. 35-27, Baylor with the lead, with 5:22 to play in the third quarter. But Baylor would answer. They drove down the field on a drive that bridged the third and fourth quarters. They got to the red zone, but just a flurry of penalties, a bevy, if you will, stalled Baylor's drive. They had to settle for a Connor Hawkins field goal. That made it 38-27, 11 seconds in to the fourth quarter. So it's 38-27. Oklahoma State is driving at midfield. About 12 minutes to go. They face a 4th down and 6. They chose to punt the football. Little surprised they did. I think a lot of people were. Certainly on the broadcast, there was some talk, well, should they have punted there? And that might be one that interim coach Doug Meacham would like back. He punted it to Baylor, and Baylor drove down the field, and it was Sawyer Robertson who officially iced the game.
So here we go. 1st and goal from the 2. Sawyer Robertson in the shotgun. Caden Knighton in the backfield. Fake the handoff. Oh! Sawyer Robertson runs it in for the touchdown. Fake the handoff to Caden Knighton. Robertson, a little dance in the end zone as he runs it in for 6.
Wow.
Catching people off guard. He hasn't done that much this year. You could tell by the reaction there. Certainly that was welcome. That made the score 45-27 with the subsequent extra point there. 45-27 Baylor with 6:31 to play, and that really was the ball game. Again, Oklahoma State chose to punt rather than go for it on 4th and 6, and the Bears really put together a clutch drive. 10 plays, 89 yards that chewed 5.5 minutes off the clock. and really salted the game away. A lot of fans have been clamoring for Sawyer to use his legs more. He did there, and that, as we said, it iced the ball game today. Sawyer Robertson ran the ball 5 times for 6 yards and a touchdown. He had a 5-yard run. That was his long. But, again, just putting that on film gives teams something different to think about. I mean, it really had been mostly the Bryson Washington show in the running game this season. We're going to talk about this more in our Inside the Numbers segments, but that was a wrinkle that was welcome there, and we'll see if we see more of that next week against Kansas State and beyond. But the Bears today score 6 touchdowns and a field goal, 4 of them on the through the air on the arm of Sawyer Robertson. He added 1 on the ground. Bryson Washington with a touchdown. And the Bears get a road win in a place that has been historically inhospitable to the Bears. Baylor now 8 wins in 22 games in Stillwater all time. Today, 45-27, which, by the way, is the exact same score as the 2019 game up there, a Baylor win. That's neither here nor there, but suppose somewhat interesting. It's a number anyway, and speaking of numbers, we've got to go inside the numbers, and we'll do that when we return here on the post-game fan forum. We're brought to you by Rudy's, proud sponsor Baylor football. Be sure to stop by your local Rudy's or Rudy's.com for some real Texas barbecue. Enjoy 100% oak smoked meats, delicious sides, and Rudy's signature sauce. Don't forget, Rudy's serves breakfast tacos every day until 10 a.m. About 10 minutes from now, we're going to hear from Bears head coach Dave Aranda. We'll revisit his post-game interview with John Morris and Nick Florence a little bit later on, our Impact segment. But coming up next, we'll look at the stats from this game and see which numbers really matter as we go inside the numbers. When we come back here in Waco after this, a 45-27 Baylor win today in Stillwater. We'll be back in a moment on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
If you're stuck in a high auto loan rate, it's time to call an Audible.
Hi, I'm Joe Betsy Tyler with First Central. When it comes to your auto loan, you don't have to stay in a bad formation. Call the right play. Refinance with First Central and get a lower rate, fast approvals, and a team that knows how to win local.
Visit firstcentralcu.com and apply today.
First Central Credit Union. Everything we do for you.
Membership and loan.
Miranda edited a little bit. It was about 6.5.
Premier ER and Urgent Care has all the...
No worries. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's terrible.
At every visit, be seen by ER-trained staff with on-site lab and CT, X-ray.
Yeah, it works fine at home.
Appropriate level of care that you receive, and we are in network with most major insurance providers. Premier ER and Urgent Care has 4 convenient locations serving Texas: San Marcos, Temple, Waco, and Woodway. To learn more, visit www.premier.care.
Baylor Nation rolls along with Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram. Start with award-winning service and factory-trained techs. Then shop our new and used lineup from cars, trucks to SUVs, all makes and models. Running a business? We're your Central Texas headquarters for ProMaster vans, cab, and chassis and work trucks. For power and comfort, test drive the Ram 1500, the Motor Trend Truck of the Year winner again. Allen Samuels in Waco, proud partner of Baylor Athletics.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Do you want to earn points while cheering on your favorite Baylor teams? Join Baylor Bold Rewards. Track your attendance on the Baylor Sports app across athletic events and earn points towards prizes and experiences. Download the Baylor Sports app or register online today at BaylorBoldRewards.com and start earning your points today.
Welcome back to the Fifth Quarter Show on the Baylor Sports Media Network. Get ready to go inside the numbers for the stats that shaped today's game. Here's Derek Smith.
Back here following a 45-27 Baylor victory today in Stillwater. The Bears now 3-2 on the year, 1-1 in Big 12 play. Weirdly, 2-0 on the road this year versus 1-2 at home. I think there was one game that obviously on the road, that SMU game, was one you didn't know exactly how it was going to go. Could have gone either way. And then today was one you felt like Baylor should go in there and win decisively. And at the end of the day, the final score was decisive. It didn't always feel decisive, but it is a road win today for the Bears, 45-27. Let's take a look at some of the numbers here in this one. Baylor with some in the end, good offensive stats, and really the offense, save for a couple of stretches, moved the ball very well today. Again, 5 of 5 in the red zone, 6 touchdowns and a field goal. Really, their only squandered opportunity came when they missed a field goal at the end of the first half. Also, a Caden Knighton fumble. Caden Knighton, by the way, as we'll talk about, really a pretty solid game for the Bears. If you could just take away that fumble, you can't, but you hope he kind of learns from that, holds on to the ball after a big play, and Caden Knighton was big today for the Bears. But Baylor took advantage of most of their opportunities, kind of got a little sloggy there in the third quarter, but got back on track as they put it away 45-27. Appreciate those of you with us on the Baylor Athletics YouTube channel watching in. You look today, Baylor finished with 612 yards. It's their highest total of the season. And defensively, they allowed 448, and that is just shy of being their highest total of the season. They allowed 458 yards to SMU in that double overtime victory 3 weeks ago. As we go inside the numbers, you look at this, I think anytime you've got a 3-2 football team, there's up and down. Baylor had an opportunity to beat Arizona State last week. They didn't. They had opportunities to really get back in the game when, after falling behind 17-3 to Auburn, ultimately they couldn't get any closer than one score. I think SMU probably is thinking they could have won that game in Dallas 3 weeks ago as well. But, you look, I see people talking about a little bit of the inconsistency of this team. It has been up and down. You look for that 60-minute game. That's been elusive, and that is one thing that you got to find a way to fix. You got to put together a 60-minute game where you get it done on both sides of the ball, and you got to stack a few of those together. Some people talking about the fact that you're kind of looking for the defense. Paul saying I want to see the defense play 2 good games in a row. I think last week they really did a nice job against Arizona State despite all the injuries. Today they didn't play a very good defensive first half, although they did play a really good defensive second half. Now, that's really a big number in this game. Oklahoma State with 349 yards of offense in the first half, but the Bears held them to just 99 yards in the second half and 1 score. They really stifled them in the second half. Baylor was good again through the air. Sawyer Robertson, another big game, 24 of 35, 393 yards, 4 touchdowns without an interception, 291 yards through the air from Oklahoma State. And, of course, they had everybody involved. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. It was anything in the playbook was a possibility to be out there. The game plan for this game had to be a mile long because the plays that they pulled from the playbook, they dusted off the call sheets. I mean, give them credit. They executed them. In fact, they had a couple touchdowns or a touchdown set up on trick plays, but it wasn't enough to beat the Bears today. Baylor, a much better job rushing the football. This is an area that Baylor has struggled in, next to last in the Big 12 on the season with 139 yards per game rushing. Well, today, 80 yards more than that, 5.5 yards per carry. Caden Knighton, 5 carries, 81 yards. Bryson Washington, 10 carries, 77 yards and a touchdown. Michael Turner, the highly touted freshman that we just hadn't got to see, missed him last year. He's a guy finished with 47 yards today. Maybe he's someone who, if you need a change of pace, can take a little pressure off of Washington and perhaps Knighton as well. And it was also nice to see Sawyer Robertson get involved in the run game as well, including a touchdown on the ground. Penalties, not good today for either team. Oklahoma State, 8 for 100 yards. Baylor, 8 penalties for 60 yards. Those penalties really probably cost them an opportunity to salt the game away a little bit earlier. You think about that drive at the end of the third quarter, early in the fourth. Pretty effortlessly, they drive into the red zone, and then multiple holding penalties back the Bears all the way up out of the red zone. They have to settle for a field goal. Baylor was 7 of 14 on third down today, 1 of 2 on fourth down. Oklahoma State 7 of 17 on third down, 0 of 2 on fourth down. Baylor 8.5 yards per play. Oklahoma State 5.5 yards per play. Baylor was getting dominated in time of possession, but in the end actually had the ball longer than Oklahoma State. Baylor with the ball for 31 minutes and 52 seconds compared to 28 minutes and 8 seconds for the Cowboys. And again, Baylor with 5 trips to the red zone. They scored touchdowns on all of them. Although, as I say that stat, can be a little bit misleading because Baylor did get the ball there right into the red zone. Actually, let me double check that. Baylor missed a scoring opportunity there on that drive in the third quarter, early fourth, when they had to settle for the Connor Hawkins 36-yard field goal. Well, they did score. They were 5 of 5 in the red zone officially today, and they made the most of those opportunities, save for having to settle for that field goal there. 45-27 victory. Those are the team numbers. Let's take a look at some of the individual stats. Zane Flores, 23 of 41 today for Oklahoma State, 232 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Trent Howland, who really hadn't played much this year, 16 carries, 84 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They had a wide receiver throw 4 passes today, 3 for 4 for 46 yards and a touchdown. And obviously, as we talked about the fact, they really threw everything at the Bears, and Baylor didn't always weather it perfectly, but in the end was able to weather it enough. Sam Jackson throwing a touchdown pass today, a wide receiver. He was a quarterback at his previous stops in college before transferring to Auburn and then Oklahoma State as a wide receiver. All right, some other individual numbers for the Bears. Caden Knighton, he had a fumble today. That was the negative. The only turnover of the game. Baylor did not force one. That's back-to-back games now. Baylor has not forced a turnover. You hope that they can get that going, because if you don't, you feel like that, that slow pace of forcing turnovers could come back to bite the Bears at some point. But they protected the football pretty well. Caden Knighton lost the football at the end of a 39-yard reception, and really, he had his best game as a Bear. 6 touches for 120 yards, and minus that fumble, it was a really solid game for him. Bryson Washington, 10 carries, 77 yards, and a touchdown. Josh Cameron, after that nightmarish game last week, really bounced back strong. A quiet 98 yards, but it's still 6 catches for 98 yards on 7 targets for Josh Cameron. Cole Wilson, 6 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. Michael Trigg, 3 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Matt Kloffenstein, the backup tight end, 3 catches for 24 yards and a touchdown today. He did a nice job. And how about Kobe Prentice? 1 reception, 73 yards, and a touchdown. Now, you can look at the negative in this game. Baylor did allow a team that was averaging 14 points per game through their first 3 games to score 27. That was the negative. Now, you could also look at the fact that they threw everything they could at Baylor, and Baylor still won the game relatively comfortably despite not playing their best football. I think you look at both sides of the coin, right? It's a road win. You're 1-1 in Big 12 play, but you're going to need to play better after that. You can also look, Baylor got much better in the second half, holding Oklahoma State to just 99 yards of total offense. And you can look at the fact that Baylor continues to have a lot of great weapons. You look at today's game, you had 4 receivers with at least 3 receptions. Josh Cameron, Cole Wilson, Michael Trigg, Matt Kloffenstein. He had Ashton Hawkins in there with 2, and you really were able to spread the ball around. 9 different receivers caught a pass, and actually you ended up having 10 different players touch the ball today on offense, and really were able to spread it out. It's kind of pick your poison with this Baylor team. I think that's why the fumbles last week were so frustrating. This is a Baylor team that can really put pressure on you on offense, and your most reliable player in a lot of ways had the turnover issues with 2 fumbles and involved in an interception last week in Josh Cameron, but he bounced right back today. 6 catches, 98 yards, and again, you see a Baylor team that you don't really know who to cover because you ended up having 4 receivers today with at least 60 yards receiving. You had 2 running backs with at least 70 yards rushing. So, again, everyone involved today. And Sawyer Robertson, another great game, 24 of 35, 393 yards, 4 touchdowns. After a rough couple of weeks in which he had a couple of interceptions, he looked more like his old self today. So that is going inside the numbers in this one, a 45-27 Baylor win that improves the Bears' record to 3-2 on the year and 1-1 in Big 12 play. When we come back, we'll revisit head coach Dave Aranda's post-game comments with John Morris and Nick Florence from Stillwater. It's his first win in Stillwater. All of these guys, their first win in Stillwater. Actually, interestingly enough, this was Baylor's first trip to Stillwater since 2021. Obviously, with the growth of the Big 12, it's a case in which, you don't see everyone every other year. It's hard to believe it's been 4 years since Baylor has been to Stillwater, but they were back there today. They got the win, and Baylor's now won 2 straight in the series. Coming up this week on the Baylor Coaches Show, tune in for women's golf coach Jay Goebel and head football coach Dave Aranda. Going to break down this game and get you ready for the Kansas State game. Baylor Coaches Show, presented by Central National Bank, is live at Rudy's. Voice of the Bears, John Morris, will be there again this week with Jay Goebel and Dave Aranda, 6 to 7 p.m. at Rudy's. You can join us in person. You can listen on our flagship station, ESPN Central Texas, or you can watch on the Baylor Athletics YouTube channel. Get the inside scoop on all of our Baylor Athletics programs this season. It's the Baylor Coaches Show, presented by Central National Bank, live from Rudy's. Take a time out and come back with Coach Aranda right after this. It's the Fifth Quarter Show here on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
I'll be right back.
All righty.
When life gets complicated, Butts Law Firm is your one stop for a wide range of legal needs. Whether you need estate planning documents such as a will, trust, or guardianship, or the appointment of a receiver to handle personal or business assets management and disposal, consumer protection, family-related legal matters, or various business-related issues, we are your community firm. Whether you're planning for the future, navigating a probate, or managing a business, our experienced team is ready to guide you every step of the way. Trust us to provide the legal support you need. Call today, 406-641-BUTZ. That's 406-641-2889. Or come by the Waxahachie office at 301 South Rogers Street, Suite 202, downtown Waxahachie. Come see the difference having a trusted attorney by your side can make, because at Butts Law Firm, your legal rights are our business.
Do you ever scream at your screen when your 5G internet freezes? It's the worst. So why not switch to Astound? Wi-Fi that just works. With Astound Wi-Fi, you'll rage less, buffer less, and live more. Lock in gig speed Wi-Fi for just $35 a month, guaranteed for 3 years. Plus, get up to a $200 Amazon gift card. Astound Wi-Fi, it just works. Visit astound.com today.
If you need a trailer, Flat Rock Trailers has got you covered. From light-duty single-axle utility trailers to the Big Tex tandem duals. We also carry a full line of enclosed cargo trailers. Need a motorcycle trailer? We've got them. Need a dump trailer? We've got the largest selection in the state. Oil field trailers? We carry a full line of Big Tex trailers to handle all your needs. Trailer repairs? We repair all makes and models. We'll even rent you a trailer if you need to use one for a day. Flat Rock Trailers, your #1 source for all your trailer needs. Find us at flatrocktrailers.com.
Welcome back to the Fifth Quarter Show on the Baylor Sports Media Network. Here's your host, Derek Smith.
Sawyer Robertson accounts for 5 touchdowns today. Baylor's defense holds Oklahoma State to just 7 points and 99 yards in the second half, and the Bears are victorious on the road in Stillwater today, 45-27. Crazy week up in Stillwater, the firing of Mike Gundy. He's been the coach there since 2005. It's funny, I think back, my first game for the Bears in Oklahoma State on the road came in 2004. I was a student, went up there. I remember the head coach was Les Miles. Baylor didn't fare very well in that game. Crazy to think that from that point on, Mike Gundy has been the head coach, and you look 20-plus years there at the helm of the program. Such a big shift. Doug Meacham wasn't a bad guy to have step into his place as interim coach, and he's had some success against the Bears. He obviously had the guys ready to play today for Oklahoma State, but they did not sustain it, a 45-27 win. We're going to hear from Coach Dave Aranda again in just a moment, but looking at some of the comments on our YouTube channel and elsewhere, one saying that everyone knew Oklahoma State was going to come out and play hard today. So it's a good win. Oklahoma State may not look that good again the rest of the year. I think that's true. Coach Aranda, you're going to hear him in a minute say this was their Super Bowl. And I think in some cases when you hear something like that, maybe you think, Well, obviously, are you just saying that because Baylor didn't play as well as we wanted? But no, I think that was really true today. This really was their Super Bowl. They've had a bad week, a bad start to the year. They wanted to come out and just win it to prove that they were better than things looked, but they weren't able to get it done. Another fan talking about the fact that it's, they're finding it hard to have enthusiasm for an 11 a.m. kick against Kansas State next week. I would imagine that Kansas State fans were saying the same thing against UCF today with their rough start. They got back on the winning track with a 34-20 victory over UCF today. That's going to be a big game for both teams. For Kansas State, it's a chance to try to really show that they're better than their early start to the season, string together wins. For the Bears, it's going to be an opportunity to protect the home field a little bit better than they have so far. I'm going to take let's take a look at one comment here. Saying it's hard to have enthusiasm, saying we are so bad. Baylor is so bad. And what I'm going to take issue with that and say I think the correct thing is we're inconsistent right now. Is Baylor the team that put up 48 points on the road against then number 17 SMU, that fought all tooth and nail throughout that game, and that really SMU's defense couldn't stop from the third quarter on? I'd say yes, Baylor is that team. But is Baylor also that team that looked disinterested in the second half against Samford and really let that game just sort of come limping to the finish line? Baylor also is that team. Is Baylor the team that has closed games against SMU?
Premier ER and Urgent Care has all the convenience of urgent care.
The answer is yes, Baylor is that team. But is Baylor also the team that has started slowly in really now in some ways I would have to say 4 of the 5 games this year? That's also true. And when you hear Coach Aranda and fans talking about that complimentary football 60-minute game, you want that because you look at this roster and you see, particularly on the offensive side, you think there's enough talent there that this team is 3-2 right now. It could easily be 4-1. I'm going to look at that, going to look at that Auburn game and say ultimately they won that game by a couple of touchdowns. But you think last week that game against Arizona State was right there. This team isn't bad, but it's inconsistent. It could be good, but the inconsistency so far, it's hard to tell how good they could be. And I think that's what you look here as you move into next week against Kansas State, which will at the end of that game be the halfway point of the regular season. 4-2 wouldn't be a terrible place. 3-3 would